Has anyone here been told that they're too bold or not enough or maybe too loud or too direct or too quiet or anything too something? Anybody? Does that feel familiar? Okay. Well, so in the context of a black sheep, like you might be wondering, am I a black sheep? I don't know. I don't know if I am. And a lot of times people have this connotation that it is the black sheep of the family that's like a bad rebel person, like the bad seed or whatever. But that's not the context I'm using it for. Although, I mean, I'm definitely the black sheep in my family. It doesn't mean that you're the bad seed. It just means that you're like, hey, I feel like there's a better way to do this. And people are like, why are you saying that? It's so annoying. We all just want to keep doing things the way that we're doing. Why can't you just be easy? Right. And so this can apply in sales, as a mother, as a woman, as a professional. I mean, it applies to all sorts of things. And so in sales, the status quo salesperson is like pushy and aggressive, right? And all of the sales strategies are pretty much designed for that person. And so anybody else feels pretty lost. So I'm going to show you how being a black sheep in sales is actually exceptionally powerful. And it makes things a lot easier when you just own it instead of trying to pretend you're this other person that these sales strategies are made for. So we're going to talk about increasing your sales by proactively overcoming objections, which honestly is such a black sheep take because status quo sales is all about like like they say the sales don't start until you get to the objections. Like it's this battle at the end and stuff. And it's actually less effective. I mean, if more aggressive people would adopt some of these strategies, they would actually have higher conversions, but I think it would just feel so out of alignment for them, honestly. Um, okay, so to start, I think it's important to lay out the bigger picture here. So, has anybody here had any kind of sales training? Yeah. How did it feel? Did they tell you to do something like kind of weird? And you were like, that feels weird. And they said, do it anyway. So this is a big issue with sales training today, especially for business owners who are selling their own services, because they're like, oh, hey, I want to, do this service, and oh, shoot, I have to sell it. And then the way that it's taught feels so not comfortable. So it's not that what they're teaching, that script or that strategy doesn't work. It's that it works for them. And you are a different person and you have a different audience and you have a different offer. So like for example, I worked with a social marketing, media marketing agency, and they had worked with a sales consultant, and they told her to sell $5,000 VIP days. She couldn't sell any because nobody wants to buy that from a social media marketing agency. They want to buy that from, I guess, a sales consultant. So that's what worked for the person teaching her. So that's one issue. It's not that you're bad at sales, because a lot of people get this idea like I'm bad at sales because I don't like pushing people. That doesn't mean you're bad at sales. It actually means you're really good at sales and you just need something else that feels more aligned. So the second issue is, has anybody ever had an experience with a pushy salesperson and you're the buyer? And like, what about objections? Did you ever have any like somebody really trying to bulldoze your objections in a sales conversation? Yeah, so uncomfortable, right? So we're so worried about being that person that we go 180 in the opposite direction, and then we just don't know how to navigate a sales conversation at all because we're just so worried about being that person that we really hate. So, yeah, black sheep don't have sales conversations. They have fitting conversations, you guys. This is a collaborative, transparent conversation about whether your expectations line up with what I deliver. And if they do, let's do it. And if they don't, that's okay. I'm going to point you in the direction where you will get that support. And so it becomes a lot easier, and it immediately makes the person you're talking to feel safer because they realize that it's not about like you're not just trying to get them a yes, because status quo sellers, their only goal is to get a yes. The only criteria for a good fit is if you have a pulse and a working credit card. And a black sheep has different criteria, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. And this very much applies to objections. So who am I? I am a sales consultant. I also wrote this book, Black Sheep Sales, How to Win More Sales Without Acting Like a Douchebag. So that usually gives people an understanding of like my approach. I've personally sold tens of millions, as Linda said, and I've helped others sell tens of millions. And I'm on a mission to turn black sheep into a positive term because it is. Okay. No progress or innovation happens without somebody who is willing to challenge the status quo. So that is a good thing. And who are you? You sell something more complex to explain and high value. You have long-term client relationships. So we don't want nightmare clients in here because you're going to have to be working with them month after month. You care about more money, although money is great. We love money too. It's just that that's not your only goal because you know that nightmare clients cost you more money. And the thought of you or your team representing you being pushy or cringy, you're like allergic to it. It makes you dry heave because it's your reputation. Your team, the way that they sell you or how you sell yourself is your reputation. And I have seen so many times people who have very different presentation online, and because they're implementing this pushy strategy that they got from somewhere, the person who was attracted to them is totally thrown off because the sales experience is so different from how they present themselves online. So what we're going to cover today is how to use pre-call objection, education to overcome objections, questions that overcome objections, and meeting objections with curiosity. And it's all proactive. There's 3 steps to integrate this so that you really don't have the battle at the end of the conversation. So first I want to talk about what does a good salesperson look like? Oh my God. What does a good salesperson look like? You don't need to be this guy, right? Do you trust this guy, right? You know this guy. Most people think that that is the guy that they need to act like. The outgoing, smooth, charming closer. But the thing is that's what you expect a salesperson to act like. And so for that reason, you trust them less. So the less you seem like a typical salesperson, the more someone's going to trust you. That means all you need to be is genuinely curious, empathetic, and passionate. Do you guys feel like you are genuinely curious, empathetic, and passionate? Great, we're going to leverage that because I know that in status quo sales, they pretty much tell you to just squash that intuition. Women have fantastic intuition and emotional IQ. You know when someone is like, something's not landing or someone's uncomfortable, and that is powerful information in a sales context. And men are capable of it. It just doesn't come as naturally to them because they're not trained to be constantly aware of how everyone in the room is feeling. So we have a leg up here when we know how to use it to our advantage. So the black sheep sales method is when it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. So this is a really powerful frame for a conversation because you're collaboratively exploring together if maybe this isn't a good fit for somebody, not in a manipulative, tactical way, but in a genuine way. And for that reason, someone's going to be able to let down their guard and have a more honest conversation with you about it. Because the truth is, you don't want people who aren't a fit either. Because those are the people that are nightmare clients. Those are the people that don't get the results, that ask you to go out of scope, that nitpick you or micromanage you or whatever. And you guys know some money is not better than no money. So when focusing on fit, the conversation becomes this transparent discussion, and this thread goes throughout the entire conversation from before to during and after. And who here has had a nightmare client before? Yeah. So did they end up actually costing you more money? Yeah, they usually do. It's one of those things that you try to tell people ahead of time not to do, but it's like you got to learn it firsthand and then you would probably need to make the mistake another 2 times. And then you'll finally not make the mistake. But this is going to make it a lot easier. You charge them more upfront. That's smart, Ava. But ideally you can just avoid them and turn them to wherever what they really need, right? So this starts with pre-call education. So You can't educate and sell at the same time, you guys. Does anybody here feel like they are educating inside of their sales conversations? Yeah. So you're educating on like the industry, how you work, what reasonable expectations are, how long things take. These are all things that you can't do at the same time that you're selling because somebody has to absorb the education first before they can make a decision about whether you are the right fit for them. So you really want to pop whatever it is that you are educating people on out, and you're going to want to give it to them ahead of time because a confused mind says no or let me think about it. So in your pre-call education, you're going to attract as much as you repel. You want an audience as much as you have an anti-audience. So everybody always talks about their ideal client, right? And they know who that is more so than they know who's not their ideal client. So what's really important for this is understanding what pieces you're educating about, and we can craft some things here together. So, for example, I'm working with a marketing agency right now. I have a client, and her team, fulfillment team, is having a lot of problems because people think that they're going to get results tomorrow. They also think that going viral is a strategy. They also think that their recommendations matter more than people who have been doing this for years. So they end up having to do whatever the client recommends, and then the campaign doesn't go well because they went with whatever the client said that they wanted. So instead, we popped that out ahead of time in the form of like no BS marketing commandments and have going viral is not a strategy. We're here for the metrics that matter. So if you want going viral, like, that's not us. We also are really proud to be continuously educating ourselves on a very quickly changing market. Marketing is always changing. So we work best with clients who trust us. And also, we make decisions based on data, not emotions. And this is a long-term partnership, right? Not like a tomorrow results. That happens sometimes. But so anyway, I hope this is giving you guys some ideas of what you might be educating on because you want somebody to see this ahead of time and be able to respond back and say, that sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. So for me, I have like, look, sales is not a numbers game. I'm not going to have you have an Excel spread. I was educating too much on people saying, well, how are you different from other sales consultants? And it's like, okay, y'all need to know this ahead of time so we can just talk about your specific sales process. So, letting them know that it's about actually taking less calls and you make more money. And I'm not going to have an Excel spreadsheet where we talk about how your outreach goes and like, I'm holding you accountable to these numbers and stuff like that. So, does anybody want to come up and workshop on some pre-call education that would end up attracting your buyer more? Because here's the thing, although you are filtering people out, the people who are the right fit can say, I know exactly who this person is that they're talking about that is not a fit, and it is not me. And so I'm even more excited to work with them. Marjorie.
Yes, here I am.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
My mom,
This is not just an affirmations cheerleader rah rah session. This is not about being a showman, right? So they're coming with the right context to the conversation. And now we're going to ask discovery that's going to overcome objections. So I want you to think about what are the most common objections that you get outside of price? And you're going to ask about those ahead of time. So let's say that people are going to say it sounds time consuming, for example. Okay, so one of the questions you're going to want to ask in your discovery is, how much time do you have to invest in this? Let's just talk about it now. And a lot of times people don't even realize how much time they have. They're like confused about how much time they have. So if you ask them in this context where you're not coming from this defensive place at the end of the conversation, their mind is more open to really talking it through because they don't feel like you're just trying to convince them so you could get the sale. They're going to really think about what does my schedule look like? Like, what am I doing? And they might even overestimate how much they need. Oh, well, I have 3 hours a week. Oh, it's more than enough. We only need 1 hour. That objection, you're not going to have it at the end anymore, right? And then you also want to think about what are the patterns in people who aren't happy with results. So this is really powerful to ask ahead of time because it's you doing your due diligence. The thing that people get wrong about objections a lot is they don't realize they're valid concerns. And we should consider those as the seller because what if this isn't a fit and I'm about to enter into a situation that's not good for either of us? So people who aren't happy with results usually had misaligned expectations around timeline, around the result they were going to get, around you know, how much time was required of them or what they needed ahead of time for it to work or whatever. So you want to think about that, and then we're going to ask that ahead of time too. So for example, who do you have to support you with this? If they need to have a team, if their spouse needs to be on board, those kinds of things that we want to talk about ahead of time. And it's a lot easier to do it in this proactive way, and the person feels much more comfortable. So, do we want to do some hot seat coaching? Does anybody feel like they want to come up and
recording again?
Okay. So, overcoming objections feels defensive, dismissive, and invalidating. So when you have a concern and you're like, hey, I've got a concern, and that salesperson's like, that's not really a concern because blah, 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 blah. Do you feel like I believe them and I feel safe moving forward? Or are you like, yeah, that's exactly what you would say because you want me to say yes and you want my money? It feels like you're not even giving my concern a chance to be real. So how can I trust what you're saying, right? So you want to get collaboratively curious. You want to treat the objection like it's potentially valid. Like, oh my God, this might make you a bad fit. Let's explore it together, right? So I'm going to give you some examples of common objections and status quo ways of responding to them, and then black sheep ways. And can you guys see how these layer on top of each other so that it's a much lighter sales conversation? It doesn't require so much coercion and convincing. It's really like you guys decide together. So you're going to get more yeses. So this is one. Has anyone ever heard, this seems complicated? Yeah, I bet Nikki has. So the way to overcome that for a lot of status quo people is, well, we have step-by-step videos that break it down in homework, so it's really actually easy. And you're like, okay, I don't feel like it's easy, right? So instead, you would want to say, which part? Like, what seems complicated about it? And you'll usually find that they're confused about something. They're just actually not clear. And once they're clear, the objection untangles itself. No coercion needed. And then does having this make a difference for you? Does having me available in real time whenever you get stuck make a difference for you through that? You know? So then another one, this seems really time consuming. Has anybody heard that one? So the status quo bulldozer way of handling that is, well, considering you get this return for the hours invested, it's really worth it, right? Instead, you want to ask, well, how much time do you have? Like, what's your schedule like? What do you have going on? Because a lot of times people just in their mind feel busier than they actually are. And you want to leave space for maybe they are too busy. Okay. And that's okay. And do you have other commitments? So understanding what else they have on their plate and if this fits into it, right? Because a lot of times this is a complement to whatever they're doing. Well, this is actually going to make that go faster. And they're like, oh, but it's really about exploring it together. The last one, this seems expensive. Who's heard this? Constantly, right? So usually you'll overcome it with a really long tangent of everything included. Or is what your end result is wanting, would you rather that, or would you rather, have you heard the heaven and hell sales strategy? Like they insert whatever the hell is, which is like continuing to struggle and languish and, not make ends meet. And they're very dramatic about it, right? So does that make you feel like moving forward, or does it make you feel like shame? Shame, right? Okay, so instead, expensive compared to what? Because you guys, so often people are not comparing apples to apples. I can't even tell you. Like, so then you're like, okay, does that solution have XYZ? Like, this is not, um, oh my God, I'm totally blanking on that course thing that has like courses for like $50. It's like, this is one-on-one support. Okay. Does that make a difference for you? You know? And if it doesn't, then that's okay. You're just not a fit, right? So you're exploring that together, you guys. So we don't have time for the hot seat coaching. But to recap, it's fitting, not selling. You're filtering out as much as in. And when you filter out, the in is going to be so much more magnetized to you. And you're going to treat objections as potentially valid concerns that make them not a fit. And that is okay. And having that detachment from it is going to make the other person feel safe in exploring them with you.